What is the most serious paranormal experience you've had? My family has a cabin next to a lake in Vermont that we spend time at in the summer. One night, while sleeping in the upstairs bedroom, I hear what sounds like someone getting up to go to the bathroom. It was coming from right across the hallway outside my door, so I assumed it was my mom, usual occurrence. Oddly enough, no lights went on and no bathroom noises. The sound of footsteps just stopped. A minute later, I had this odd feeling that someone was standing at the half-open door to my bedroom, watching me. This feeling went on for minutes until all of a sudden the feeling of someone standing by the door turned into the feeling of someone standing directly over the bed. For the next 5 minutes, I had the terrible feeling that someone/something was looming over me with their face mere inches from mine. The 5 minutes or so seemed to last forever. Suddenly, as soon as the feeling started, it abruptly ended. No retreating footsteps, no noise at all. Whatever it was just gone. The next morning, my family and I are eating breakfast at the table and I still couldn't shake the feeling. Then my sister spoke up and asked, "Mom, what time was it that you got up to go to the bathroom last night? I could hear you up and walking around from the downstairs bedroom." Confused, my mom said that she never got up last night. My brother laughed and said, "Mom, we all heard you." Then my dad piped up and said, "No, your mom never got up." I didn't either. That's when I shared my experience. Freaked everyone out. I worked at a haunted house. Once, when looking down the hall of one of our actor exits, there stood a figure, like an all-black somewhat transparent silhouette of a human standing, motionless in front of me. I stayed at the hall entrance and called my boss over and asked her to look down the hall, but didn't give any indication that I saw anything so I wouldn't give her a false impression. When she looked, her expression was pure cold fear. "Who the fuck is that?" she said. I told her, "I don't know, but you see him too, right?" "I see through him." "Who the heck is that?" Before I could say anything more, it came full sprint at us. My boss screamed and ran away, but I was curious what it would do, so I stayed. It got right up to my face and just stopped, inches away from my nose, then suddenly dissipated into thin air. I still occasionally see my boss, and she confirms every time that we saw the same thing, and thinks I was an idiot for staying, but at the same time, it was cool. When I was around 13, I started getting a bad feeling around our house. There were certain areas I refused to go into and I was terrified to close my eyes at night. I was always a nervous child, but this went far beyond that. There are a few incidents of note and I'm going to share them in the order I remember them in. I was having a Skype call in my room with a friend and at some point I left the room with the video chat still on facing a somewhat shiny section of my bed frame. When I came back my friend looked shaken. I asked him what had happened and he explained that he'd seen a face pass by in the reflection while I was gone. We checked to see if there was any way to move the camera to where it showed his own face and we couldn't find one. While looking for a game I'd lost, I went up into the bonus room of our house. For reference, this was a room above the garage disconnected from the rest of the house except through the narrow laundry room. I hated going up there. In most cases I refused because it gave me the most horrible feeling. Some of my friends said even just going into the laundry room made them uncomfortable. After searching for a few minutes I lost my nerve and went to head back down the stairs and get out of there. As I was heading down the stairs I froze, an icy feeling in my gut, and started to turn around. Before I felt the distinct impression of hands on my back shoving me. I just barely caught the handrail before I went tumbling and ran out of there like a bat out of hell. After the previous incident, I decided to put a line of salt down in the laundry room. I figured it couldn't hurt and it'd be a good test to see if anything was actually happening or if I was just spooking myself. I put the salt down and the very next day the feeling of dread had already dulled throughout the house. I could relax, at least somewhat, and the stuff that had been happening stopped. Until I came home one day and the feeling was back worse than it had ever been. My parents had hired a cleaner who had swept up the laundry room. I was terrified of what might happen next, but couldn't bring myself to get that close to the source again. Not long after this, I started getting the same feeling I got from the bonus room in my own room. I could feel it coming distinctly from one corner of my room. I don't know how long it was there, but eventually I got used to it. I thought again that maybe I was just scaring myself. One night I laid down and closed my eyes, and after a little bit, as I was starting to drift off, my body tensed. I couldn't move or open my eyes as that feeling from the corner of my room got stronger and stronger. I felt a dip in the bed at my side, and for a moment nothing happened. I thought that maybe if I pretended to be asleep, whatever it was would go away. And then suddenly the feeling of hands was back and around my throat. I couldn't breathe, but I also couldn't move. My lungs burned, tears were rolling down my face, and I could feel myself starting to pass out. And just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. I didn't move a muscle until I finally fell asleep. The next day when I looked in the mirror, there was bruising all around the front and sides of my neck. I was grateful wearing collars was my thing so that no one was suspicious about me wearing a thick one for a week until the bruises were gone. I threw salt absolutely everywhere in my room after that. When I was about 11, I woke up in the middle of the night because my blanket had slid off me. I looked to the side of my bed and an old man was sitting there, wearing a nice coat and a hat. He smiled at me and pulled the covers back over me. I felt cozy and somehow wasn't scared. I fell back asleep. When I woke up, I told my mom what happened. She asked me to describe the man in detail. She told me he sounded just like my grandfather, who I'd never met. She was way more disturbed by it than I was, as the caring feeling I had was not at all the experience she had growing up, unfortunately. I grew up in a house built in the late 1800s. Not terribly old, but some history to it. I had some odd experiences. I hated the top of the stairs, especially at night. If the light upstairs was off and I looked up, I always had an impression of 3 women standing at the top, arranged as if they were witches around a cauldron except without the cauldron. My parents wrote it off as kid imagination, but it went until I moved out at 18, and a couple times I saw them as kind of see-through shapes when the light was on. Family cats were not a fan of that landing either, and I often saw one cat, Marbles, hissing at it. For the second one, a bit of explanation. Upstairs was a big rectangle with a stairwell along one wall. Directly at the top of the stairs was my parents' bedroom, and running parallel to the stairwell was 2 bedrooms, then the bathroom at the opposite end of the stairs facing my parents' room. My bedroom was in the middle, but I was terrified of my closet because I often saw a small shape scuttle out. Imagine the girl from The Exorcist spider walking, except an indistinct shape instead of a girl, of it across my room and out the door. So I would go sleep with my sister beside the bathroom. One night after I braved running to my sister's room because the black shape was scuttling around, the bathroom light turned on and my sister's closet door opened on its own. The black shape started scuttling from my sister's closet to the bathroom, then down the hall and back into the closet over and over. I started screaming and my mom came, but thought I was having a nightmare. She turned off the light, closed the closet and went back to bed. As soon as she was gone, it all happened again. This went on for 3 or 4 hours. Each time my mom left, the closet door opened and the light went on, and the black shape went haywire. My dad and sister slept soundly through it all. Interestingly, my sister, who is a light sleeper normally, never woke up when the black shape was harassing me, no matter how much I screamed. I would have odd nightmares on the nights the black shape was active, about being in an infinitely large, black, open space and of large things like mattresses but different shooting towards me in this vast space. But they all stopped as soon as I moved out. I went back a couple years ago during an open house and chatted with the owners. They were moving out because their youngest daughter was too scared to be there. She doesn't like the black doggy cloud that lives in her closet and gives her nightmares of being small in a really big place or the ladies that wouldn't let her up the stairs. The ongoing joke in my family is that we come from a long line of witches. So anyway, my great uncle has these dreams he was going to die before his junior year of high school and it would be a family member that killed him. So the summer before his junior year, him and his brothers are out for a summer drive, in a convertible, in the 50s with no seatbelts in the back of the car. The older brother took a turn too hard too fast and rolled the car. They all lived except the youngest brother. Then when they were going through his notebooks after his funeral, they found drawings of the church, which was several towns over, and he had never been there, so thus never seen it. He not only knew he would die, but a family member would kill him, and even drew the right church. So my grandma, who was devastated by the loss of her baby brother, got into the occult, trying to talk to the dead, and then weird shit started to happen around her house. One day while sitting on the sofa she got cold and started shaking, and she swears Jesus showed up and took her to hell to show her the paths she was walking down. And when she snapped out of it she became super religious. Now fast forward years from the 50s to the 90s, I'm sleeping in their house and I hear growling, and I wake up and see two dogs with red eyes staring at me, just big black red-eyed dogs. My own dog was on top of me growling back, just this little Sheltie staring down these demon dogs. At first I was like, I'm dreaming, this is a dream, and then one bit me and I started screaming and my dog jumped off at them. My mom came running in and was like, who bit you? Why is your hand bleeding? And I was like, where's lady? She chased them away. She was found in the basement growling at something under the steps. Every time I stayed the night it would happen. Even after my grandpa passed away and there were no dogs in the house, I would see them. I think even my kids saw them, cause she started just screaming at the top of her lungs, and not a normal baby cry but like a dying animal. I called my husband in a panic in the middle of the night and was like, the demon dogs are still here, I can't sleep here, I'm getting a hotel. I talked to my grandma about it and she confirmed after her dabble in the occult she also started seeing things and was attacked in her sleep. She fully believes she cursed the house. I walked into my friend's house the first time and just arm hair stood up and I got a sick feeling in my stomach and asked if something was up with his basement, and he looked at me shocked. Yeah, there's a nursing home next door. I think the portal to the afterlife is in my basement. Whenever someone dies my cats go down there and form a circle, and shortly after medics arrive at the nursing home. How did you know? I used to be attacked by shadow dogs in my grandpa's and grandma's house as a kid. I had the same uneasy feeling when I walked in your door. His wife had also been attacked in her sleep at his house shortly after they moved in. She was screaming and he tried to shake her awake, and he said it felt like something was pinning her to the bed. She was 110 pounds and he is this army vet in good shape and he couldn't pick her off the bed. At that point all the animals started to attack the bedroom door. He could hear their dog ripping apart the wood and his cat screaming. He said she lifted off the bed and then slammed down and woke up. She had handprint marks on her arms in the morning, and no one is sure if it was him trying to shake her awake or the thing that attacked her in her sleep. Has anything paranormal happened to you? Let's spark discussion in the comments section below. Hit like, ring the bell, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.